Good day everyone, and welcome to this Grant Thornton Roundtable Discussion. I'm Ian Pascoe, and today we're delving into the pivotal realm of business transformation. This year promises to be a watershed moment for industries worldwide, marked by unprecedented shifts and opportunities in the digital landscape. The essence of today's conversation stems from our comprehensive 2024 guide to business transformation, which includes chapters written by many of my colleagues at Grant Thornton here in Thailand. Today we're joined by an all-star lineup of business transformation experts. Andrew McBean, Ratna Wright, Tanva Mahitivanichcha and Chris Cracknell, each bringing their unique insights into the transformative strategies businesses must embrace to navigate the rapidly evolving economic and technological terrain. 2024 is not just another year. It's a call to action for businesses to fundamentally reassess and revitalise their operations. From the seismic impact of AI and digital technologies to the pressing challenges of an aging population and a shrinking workforce, the need for adaptation has never been more critical. Our goal today is to unpack the vital strategies outlined in our business transformation guide, focusing on process optimization, AI integration, and navigating demographic shifts. We aim to provide actionable insights for businesses to not only survive, but to thrive amidst these transformations. As we engage in this discussion, let's keep in mind that the journey ahead is one of synergy between innovation and tradition, technology and humanity. It's about building agile, forward-thinking organisations that are prepared to redefine their industries and contribute to a sustainable and inclusive economic future. Let's embark on this enlightening conversation and explore how we can collectively turn the challenges of 2024 into opportunities for growth and innovation. So Andrew, in your area, you discussed the critical need for businesses to infuse digital transformation, digital technology into the processes of the businesses.
Yep.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So if you ask any business leader today that if they could sort of wave a magic wand and put their business back together again today with all their processes, if they would put them back together in exactly the same way that they have them now after all this time and growth and things popping up all over the place, not one of them would say that they would put things back in exactly the same way. So what they would do is they'd try to make sure that all of their business processes are strategic levers for the business. And with today's contemporary digital tools, you would wrap digital all around these so that you're getting proactive insights into the business, you're able to sort of see ahead, you're able to react and be very agile for what is quite tough economic conditions. But what happens over time is these processes, they sort of go down and down and down to become manual processes effectively, which is wrapped around the person rather than digital. So if you're trying to tackle that at that point, it looks like you're trying to tackle the person rather than the actual process. So our job with this is to constantly infuse
Tackling the person.
Try, if you're kind of like, and that's what you're going to get sort of resistance at that level, of course. So our job here is to constantly infuse digital back into these processes, just on a never-ending process, basically, to get them back up to being strategic levers for the business. So, and luckily today, we have really powerful contemporary digital tools, which allow us to do this on a very fast, iterative basis. So actually, I think almost for the first time ever, we really can do this on this very fast basis, keep pushing them back to being strategic levers. So in order to do that, we would go into a business, and you can do this quite quickly, actually. You can do a high-level scan of the business processes to identify what are the potential digital interventions that we could apply in those businesses. You then prioritize those, and that's actually a very important process, because eventually you want to come up with things which are high value, low complexity, and that's your sweet spot. But you then put some of these processes together in sort of intelligent, let's call them customer value chains or customer journeys. And those are the ones who you want to focus on. But also you want to put a value on those. How much, what am I going to make from this? How much is it going to cost? And that's a pretty quick process that we can do quite fast, or anybody can do quite fast now. And that's going to allow the leadership of the company to say, okay, good, I want to tackle these things. These are high value, low complexity. These are going to help infuse digital back into my business processes and move them up to being strategic leaders for the business.
But given that, Andrew, and I fully support automation, robotics, anything that can help bring productivity up. Is the workforce in Thailand of a high enough level of understanding of these systems, processes, digitalization to actually deliver those results?
I think my experience is that when the workforce is involved appropriately, they come on the journey. They're absolutely because really what we're saying, the value proposition to an employee delivered correctly is very strong. Is to say, look, it's ironic, when we get down to this point here where we have these very manual processes, you've got employees who have the highest level of institutional knowledge for the company at the very lowest point of dexterity because they are trapped with manual business processes. That's not good for the employee. It's not good for the business at all. And my experience is employees don't really like it either. They would actually really like these things to become detached. So we allow technology to do those processes, those sort of manual, repetitive things, because you're effectively a biological robot at that point, not an actual robot. You're a biological robot. And then you could free up that institutional knowledge. That employee is going to be happier. They're able to contribute back to the business. That's more interesting for them. It gives them more potential to evolve their own careers, and it's better for the business as well. So I've found that when this is done with the employees in the appropriate way, they've been very into making this transformation. My experience.
Be interesting to when you look at businesses and you look at all their processes, how many businesses these processes have just evolved. I don't think any businesses have ever sat back and say, we are going to build all our processes around what we need. It's just generally it's gone from sort of paper to perhaps an older computer, a newer computer. They've never actually thought about some of those processes. And when they actually go back and analyze and go, and you often get the employees and the workers in there saying, there's a lot of things we do that we never quite understood why we're doing anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, there's an insurance company, a successful insurance company here in Thailand, and they have 160 systems to run their business. And that's not unusual because that company was very successful. They merged with another company, so you've gone from 80 to 160. And that's very normal that you would have. I mean, if we think about the way we communicate, we use Line, WhatsApp, Outlook, Teams, Slack. 5 different ways that we communicate.
What was that last one?
Slack. I mean, a lot of people are using Slack communication. And so that's 5 different ways of communicating. And who's supposed to transpose information from one to the other? It's actually you. So at the same time that we're adding all these systems, we're actually slowing down our levels of productivity as well. So it's not really just now that it's a nice to do. We have to do this. We have to infuse digital into these processes and move them back up to these strategic levers.
It's ironic, actually, when you look at over the years where we've embraced more and more technology in businesses, yet we've become less and less productive.
Yes.
It's a sort of an oxymoron.
Yes. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, the amount of times we upgrade systems, and I think if I look back when I started work compared to the productivity and how much how long your concentration span was, it's totally different now.
Yeah.
So how do we stop that? How do we actually say using our technology to actually make us more productive, not technology which is at times almost becoming a distraction, right? You never took personal phone calls at work now. All your people spend all their day doing personal phone calls, personal messages. How do you actually make that technology work better for you?
Yep. So I think we've got better contemporary tools available to us today. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were asking a CEO of a business to send us certain information so that we could talk about their digital transformation possibilities. He sent a mail to his kind of number 2 folks in the business and asked for this information. One of them sent a spreadsheet. One of them sent a spreadsheet on a PowerPoint, and one of them sent a spreadsheet which was in a Word document. Now, everything is wrong with that. First of all, what is the CEO supposed to do with this information, which is now in different forms that is not interrelated in any way, and is certainly not real time because it's dead as soon as it gets copied onto something. And secondly, that doesn't give any insight into the business or any sort of future forward predictive situation. So But we have tools that can do this. And we have analytics and advanced analytics which could produce that information so that CEO would never have to ask his lieutenants that question at all. He would never even ask them that question. They would never have to produce that information. He would never have to consolidate that information, and the business would have all of this insight into the business as well. And so these are tools that we have available to us today, but I think we're not making best use of these.
Yeah, I think I've been answered that question. I don't think Thailand has an option because it's got a rapidly shrinking workforce.
Yes.
And we've got to get productivity up. Our wages are higher than some of our neighbouring countries. We've got to get our productivity up. We need sort of one person looking after 3 robots rather than 3 robots being looked after by 9 people.
Right.
And I think there's a chance for a real leap forward. Demographics here, our fertility rate is just over 1. We need a replacement rate of 2.1 just to stay level with a stable population. So we're reducing. And by the end of this century, we're going to have half the workforce running around that we've got today.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is an option. I think all businesses, and I'd include government as well, have got to embrace productivity if they're going to succeed and be competitive within the region and globally.
Yes, 3 million workers are going to be removed from the Thai workforce every decade, and from now. So if that's 300,000 people a year, less workers, that means that the workers that you do have are going to be much more sought after, are going to have to be higher paid. It's inevitable. This is sort of mandatory, actually.
Where does AI sit with this? I mean, I asked ChatGPT to write me an article the other day, and I was astounded. It was probably one of the better written articles I've seen.
Best you've ever done.
That's probably true too. Is it a replacement?
I don't think it's going to be a replacement, Ian. I wouldn't say completely replacing human. People that learn how to adapt to it or are able to work with them, I think will have a better life at work, the level of productivity. But then even before, you talk about replacing it or implementing it or investing in it, the reason for people are skeptical, well, you mentioned earlier, right? I mean, we're doing a lot of things. Some other things are still doing manually. I mean, companies are still doing manually. Some of the, companies already have technologies that not even utilizing full function of it. There are reasons behind it through the research, feedbacks that we have heard or we hear all the time is things like, not a thorough planning. People, especially in the finance function, because we talk a lot about this, right? It helps us generate, better reporting, real-time information. Do they know that these things are really going to help them, or are they in their mind thinking that it's going to replace them? It's not going to replace them if they understand how to work with these AIs or with these technologies that are available. So we have to take a step back, do a lot of planning, think about the structure, how to upskill people, reskill people, unskill before upskilling, those type of things. And our companies promoting the right culture as well, like collaborating with the technology. And I'm not talking about collaborating, with other humans, but how are we going to make sure that we work alongside the AI technologies, for example? The design of AI system with human-centric approach kind of thing.
How do you get your workforce to embrace this rather than be scared of it? Embrace that this is going to change, the things are going to happen. So, it's like the farriers in the old horse and cart days were saying, we've got to stop these motor cars, these newfangled things, because they're going to put us all out of jobs, so we'd better stop it. I actually had my daughter the other day who's wanting to be an actress and saying that AI is going to take it over. Dad, we've got to stop it. We've got to stop this AI coming into the performing arts industry. It's going to happen. We've got to embrace it. So how do you get people to not be scared of it? Say, it's going to happen. So how are you going to adapt and embrace it?
That's a very good question. A lot of the time when people are scared of something is because they don't know what to expect, right? Communicate with them, the benefits of it. right? Making sure that, we are fostering a collaboration and productive working environment that harness the strength of both humans and the machine. Like I said, when we plan something as simple as changing something in a company, involve them, in the beginning, not that, a company decided to invest in a technology and all of a sudden overnight they want to change and people will just get scared and then they are going to be a little reluctant. They will want to make sure that, they're irreplaceable. No matter what it is, they're not going to make it happen. So communication is the key. Education is really important. Encourage continuous learning and adaptation as well. That comes to mind. Well, what do you think, Tanwa, Chris?
Just to extend to
Tanwa, Chris?
Yes, I both actually. Sorry. Okay, let me start talking.
You can go first.
No, I just
because he's not been given an introduction.
Oh, okay.
You'll have to come in later.
Okay, I'm stopping.
No, don't worry.
Okay. The economist in me. Okay. I think a lot of people are afraid new technology will replace old jobs that will phase away. But in economics, generally what you see is comparable advantages. So it doesn't come to a complete halt. So you see things start to get cheaper or more expensive comparatively, and over time the market will adjust. So like the example of oil, right? They were saying that if we have alternative energies, oil would just fall off, right, in consumption. But technically it won't come to an immediate stop. It will slowly phase out and it becomes more expensive comparative to alternative energies, which may get cheaper. And it will be a long process, right? AI still has a long way to go. From my observation, even though people say it grows, it gets intelligent exponentially. But if we bring it back down to the fact that we have an aging population, everybody finds it's more difficult to find qualified people. There are less younger people around. So we have to do with less people doing more for a longer time. And as we age, our cognitive abilities or physical abilities deteriorate. And technology will come and help replace. And perhaps that answers the question that we have for a long time. How does the economy or a country support an aging population, right? A lot of people are worried about that. How do you fund your social security program? This could be, the answer to it, because there is a demand now that there is this question, and therefore we are developing this technology to answer it. So in my more positive way of thinking, I think in the future, a company might have less people because there are less people around, but an individual will be more productive. Hopefully, with the help of AI, we are able to process more information, and we are moving more towards an information-led society, industry. So an individual has to have that ability to process it, and then to utilize the information. Now, coming from my angle as a tax consultant, you see it today, right, in the industry. Even the revenue department, the government has to process more data. For example, a lot of people who have been following the news would have seen last year we had this big change in our Thai tax law, which we say now foreign source income will be taxable in Thailand when you bring it in. That came from the fact that Thailand has ascended to a common reporting standard, where over 160 countries have ascended to that standard mandated by the OECD. What that means is that all member countries to the Common Reporting Standard, or CRS, would have to exchange information of tax residents. So gone are the days where you can stash away money overseas. If I'm a Thai tax resident, I open a Singapore account, a Hong Kong account. Now, those jurisdictions will then send the information about myself back to Thailand. And who do they send to? They send to the revenue department. And you have all this data flowing in. And what will they do with it? If they can utilize it and process it, yes, they make the tax collection more efficient. Whether it's fair or whether from the taxpayer perspective is another thing, right? But they could utilize it. But we understand that, based on our conversation with the tax authorities, they say this is a challenge for them. They have limited resources. They don't have that many people with with the technical skills or the technology. So they either have to develop it in-house, and with less people around, even with for government and companies, they would have to enable their people to utilize technologies or AI to be able to process information. Less workforce for the government, less expenditures for the government, but more efficient output. As to whether they can do it themselves or whether they would outsource it, it raises all questions of data privacies. So these are the issues that we also have to tackle with going forward. But from my perspective, I think it would be quite positive for the country and economy, especially for countries where we are facing population decline, shrinking workforces, that if we can effectively augment our workforce with AI and train them, then I think it'll be a good outcome for us.
It's funny, I sometimes when I'm dealing with the Thai Revenue Department, I feel like I'm back in Charles Dickens' era and, having the old green visor and the ledgers. There's a lot of talk about Thailand 4.0, and sometimes I think they've got the decimal place around the wrong way and it's 0.4. But is the Revenue Department, is it adapting? Because when I talk to so many business leaders, particularly of multinationals or companies investing here, companies and businesses expect to pay tax. They understand they have to pay tax, and it's part of just death and taxes as a certainty in life. They know it's got to be done, and they know they're going to have to pay it. What the biggest issue is certainty.
Yes.
And do you think we could move from a regime of negotiation to some sort of certainty when you're dealing with the Revenue Department by infusing some of these technologies in there? So it takes away a lot of that subjective judgment that we all know happens in the Revenue Department, in the Customs Department, and actually bring about some certainty. Because that's I think that's one of the things that Thailand really needs to do if they want to attract investment, is to have a transparent, robust taxation system that people actually understand and have some certainty.
Right. And I think that would be one of the solutions, because the only way you would gain transparency in any bureaucracy is either to have the people trained up, obviously to have them incentivized, right? Properly incentivized to be transparent. Or the other option is to take it out of the human hands and automate it, thereby taking away that freedom to be the freedom to be discreet, right, about decisions. And at the end of the day, it's also about the training of these officers or the government employees and giving them the tools. Yeah, and I agree. It will help with transparency.
I'd just like to go back to one of the points Ratna made about change management, because I think at the heart of the issue of resistance is an inability to accept change. We don't mind it happening to everyone else, but we don't want it to happen to ourselves. But business leaders don't like change in their companies because they think they're losing control if the systems aren't the ones they're familiar with. And yet, if we go forward, and one of the skills we have at Grant Thornton is managing change management programs, is actually embracing change and then make it part of the way we do things rather than trying to hang on to the past. And it's that resistance to the past, or always judging, benchmarking against the past, that's stopping us moving forward. So I think the point Ratna made about we've got to get people used to change, we've got to get people used to change management programs and change people's mindsets is critical. And that's from the very top of organizations down to the very bottom. The same applies to government. The way we live our lives in 10 years and 20 years from now will be very different from how we live them today. And it's very different today to how we lived them 20 years ago. So just change is happening faster. We've got to get our mindset around that, embrace it, and change it to our advantage. And I'm a firm believer that those companies that will embrace it, will get ahead, and those that don't will fall behind.
Can I just add 2 points to what Chris said there, is that with these contemporary solutions, we can do things much more iteratively and more quickly. And generally that also means that you've got less resistance, because these are sort of death by a thousand cuts, if you like, which is actually quite acceptable for people to sort of move very gradually rather than these enormous things where you've got this 3-year SAP project or something like that. So So actually it is a really quite practical way to use these tools that we have available to us today to nudge forward that change management. I would say also another thing is that robotics and what I would call now traditional AI, which is an extension of robotics, an extension of something that was already there, as Tam was saying earlier, does have its own sort of timeline that people can sort of get comfortable with and maybe even try to put brakes on. But I just want to add that generative AI is very different. Very different. I think people maybe perhaps don't understand that it is coming from a different direction. Robotics and AI is coming in from sort of blue collar manual, taking all that repetitive work and even adding cognitive skills to it. But generative AI is coming in from another where you've got it's creativity, it's sales, it's marketing, it's coding, it's people with advanced degrees. That knowledge is being disintermediated. Now, we could all be very scared about that, but as I think it was Nunu said, we just have to accept this is happening. This is a tool that we have, that we've got to use. But this means that there's something is now happening, which I don't remember. I mean, I've been in technology for a long time, longer than I'd care to say. I don't remember something like this happening, which was so powerfully able to assist with minimal effort. That I would call this certainly something which is very disruptive in a good way, and is going to lead people. So I think this may go against what you were saying before. Generative AI is something which is able to offer such powerful and positive benefits so quickly. Like you were saying, Ian, about this has only not even been around 2 years, and you're able to do these great reports or great job descriptions, and when you start applying it to company data, I think actually that and again, that will sort of push forward. I mean, it'll be a sort of a bow wave of change, but I think also people will begin to see quite quickly, wow, that is really helpful to me. I don't have to do this stuff anymore. And I think this is going to encourage that change in a good way as well.
Ratna?
Yeah, well, a good example, very simple example, right? Think about customer service function, for example. All these, if you go into, let's say, e-commerce website, airline website, or any website or any companies that have a customer service function, majority of them right now are using AI-powered chatbots. And what does it do, right? It's always available, 24 hours available, okay? And you get instantaneous responses, and it can be personalized as well. So I remember one of the lunches, Chris, we invited one of the speakers, and then he showed us how powerful these AI-powered chatbots are, or you call it, Andrew, natural language processing?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, yeah, and the machine learning algorithms. They're able to attend to you, but then it doesn't mean that it's going to replace human, because what human benefits from this is that they are able to attend to a more complex situation or a more complex customer issue. Rather than just handling a routine task, answering basic questions, right? It's going back to your question there, Ian, is it going to replace some, maybe, not all? It's just that people will be able and have more opportunity to do something that's more meaningful, not mundane type of jobs. It should be exciting, and as Chris elaborated as well, it's a change. It's a change management, and Andrew said it's appreciating this Gen AI. It does more than what the traditional AI. Or speaking of chatbot, it started by MIT how many years ago? Like 1960 something.
Yeah.
So it's really different, right?
Just a thought to all of you. A lot of people, when they're talking about AI, particularly generative AI, that's producing reports, producing press releases, or producing whatever, there's a lot of effort being made to hide the fact that it was done by AI. Saying, we better, this was produced by AI, we better change it so it doesn't look like it's being done by AI. And I wonder, you think, we use professional scriptwriters, for example, copywriters, and people didn't get upset saying, obviously Grant Thornton didn't write that themselves, they've got a PR guy, or we don't go to hide the fact that we might have used a PR solution or someone's specialist to write it. Yet people go to great lengths to hide that they used AI. Do you think that's going to change? People are going to say, well, why didn't you use AI?
Yeah. It's funny you said that, because I gave you a job description the other day, which was written by generative AI, and it was much better than I could do, and I didn't want to tell you that.
I think
yes,
a lot of our people are doing it.
Suddenly language has got a lot better, actually.
Yeah, exactly. It's not written in English anymore.
I think yes, because I think now people this is sort of modern day calculator, although a very advanced version of it.
Right.
So I think yes, I think that's going to.
So people will actually say, well, it was written by AI. So what?
Yeah, and maybe as a leader, you're also saying why didn't you use generative AI to do that? You would have been faster.
I would have had it in 5 minutes rather than 5 days.
Yeah, and much better. And
yes.
Yeah. That's my view, anyway.
Ratna, do you think that's the case?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're producing a PowerPoint presentation, right, and people are going to spend, and I know you're very good at doing PowerPoint presentations, and I'm pretty lousy. In fact, not even pretty, just lousy. I'm going to be able, with things like Copilot, I'm going to be able to produce wonderful presentations. Will they be wonderful, or will the sort of the stick figure type presentations with just black and white plain lines, is that just not going to be acceptable? If PowerPoint done by me, people go say that. No, the client's not going to look at it. Are we going to have to? I mean, we're going to have to use it up, and I think people are going to have to embrace this.
Yes, people will have to embrace it. I mean, if we're working together with AI, like Andrew just mentioned, right? I got the AI to generate this job description for me. I'm sure that he has read before he submits it as well, because not everything that Copilot or the ChatGPT produce, we just wanted to copy and paste, right? We will embrace it, we'll appreciate it. So in order for us to implement this, right, there's a lot of things we need to think about as well, and ensure that it does not basically, how are we going to have a good balance between the technology advancement and as well as maintaining the core values? So those are the things we have to think about as well, like thinking about the sort of things we can do, can't do, what exactly we should be doing, the ethical part of it. So we have to be creative on top of what's available. Yeah, it will increase the productivity. We have to be smarter in our approach. Obviously, if you implement Copilot today, all of us are going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I just think you raised a point right at the beginning of that section, and you talk about business differentiation. I think we can embrace it, and we can use these tools to take away a lot of the legwork. But I do think at the end of the day, we've got to maintain differentiation. We've got to input our own style into it. And when it comes to more formal reports and documents, yes, we can get a lot of the base data. It's no different to us reading a lot of books or referencing or doing a search online or whatever. It's just being done as a single process into an end document. I think we then have a responsibility to sense check it. Is it getting the message that we actually think is the right answer? And it might even come up with a better one than we were thinking of. But I think we've got to take some ownership of the output, and there will be tailoring and there will be differentiation. But what it's going to really give us is greater speed, a better end product, an ability to assess multiple pools of data and bring it down to core facts quite quickly. We might have suspected the answer, but hopefully AI and other ways of working are going to give us quicker answers to support that. So I don't think it's an absolute replacement. It's got to have our personalization over the top of it to give it value.
Picking up on that as well, as I think that, often when we've thought about technology, we think about efficiency gains. We thought about it. Here's a glass. We now no longer have a glass. We can see it. It's visible. Or it was a full glass, now it's half a glass. We can see it. But I think what's very promising about this, and what will drive energy into this, is value creation. We can today do things with these tools that we couldn't have admitted to doing before, because the answer would be you need to put 20 people onto this or something like that. Now, much more powerful things of value creation. But those things are a little bit harder for businesses because you've got to dream a bit. You've got to, because it's not there. I've had this conversation with a client recently who's, I think, very out there and very self-actualized. But it was really quite hard to explain to them that if they actually had these digital tools built right into their systems and the agility and these sort of lean muscles built, they could run lots of different marketing campaigns all across Thailand, where they could turn off and turn on and transport successful marketing campaigns to other provinces much faster than if they were running very large national marketing campaigns, if they had these digital tools. And that would allow them to do incredible things. But they couldn't envisage that today. They couldn't even imagine that possibility. But this is absolutely possible with these tools.
Well, you've already got examples in Thailand. In the medical sphere, we've got X-rays being looked at by AI and actually doing first-line diagnosis of lung problems and issues right at the beginning, and then sorting it down so that the true individuals, the specialist consultants, can focus on the biggest concerns rather than having to do 100 and pick out the ones which are wrong. The 100's already routed down to 10,
right,
and they can concentrate on those 10 to make the best diagnosis that is required.
Right.
Tanva, you mentioned before about the revenue department potentially outsourcing, but potentially some of the confidentiality issues that may go with that. Do you think businesses are concerned with things like AI and building in automation, that may somehow lead to disclosing internal trade secrets, that whole confidentiality of their information is going to be compromised? Are you seeing a concern with that?
I think that's something you have to be concerned about, especially businesses that are regulated as well. Let's say if you're a public company and you're listed, right? You have to be concerned about people getting internal insider information access before others. And how do you build the security systems around whatever engine that you use, that whoever can get into the brain of that engine, that they do not exploit it, right? But I think this is something that over time the economy and the law will have to catch up to. In the past, we also have such issues, right? For example, if we are the auditors of a listed entity, the law would impose, on the regulators would impose a burden of duty upon us, and then naturally they would have to impose it on the purveyors, the suppliers of those AI engines, or whoever has access to those data. We see PDPA came up in Thailand a few years ago, much to the interest of businesses, but that, over time people get used to that now. You go to every single website, you just click and consent or you don't consent. So we become used to it. I think so, and it raises all these legal questions every time we have new technologies and new ways of doing things. As you mentioned, if I want something written up, I have ChatGPT draft it up. So is that copyrightable? Is that mine? If Grant Thornton wrote something, in the past we would say copyrighted to us. Can we copyright it anymore? You didn't write it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Is the fact that you gave it the right instruction, because I understand it, you can get totally different reports depending on what instruction you give. And I think it's now becoming a real profession, is being able to know how to give the right instructions. Prompt engineer, there you go.
It's like search engine engineer.
Yeah.
What do they say, that the people coming out of university are going to be doing jobs, well, people born now are going to be doing jobs that don't even exist?
Sure.
A prompt engineer, is that what they call it?
That's what they call it, yeah. But just to Tanva's point there, absolutely agree with Tanva on that, and for sort of ethics and all that kind of stuff. But we also must bear in mind that we're all good people, and our clients are all good people. But there are bad actors in the world, and they have exactly the same tools available to them.
Yes.
And these are immensely powerful tools. In fact, if you remember, not that long ago, there was this sort of controversy in OpenAI that with Sam Altman having to leave and then come back. And that seemed to be around this thing called artificial general intelligence, which is about the sort of theoretical pursuit of human knowledge, and it was able to do it much faster than people seem to believe was possible. And so, just moving that forward a bit, is that bad actors also now have this. It's not like they're waiting for government regulations or something like that. They have this now. So again, absolutely businesses must understand this. They must understand it, use it, know all about it to be able to also know how other people are going to use it against them. Because all the security stuff is always like this. It's
Great point. I mean, the need for IT security and constantly upgrading that is more. It's required more than ever. I was reading something the other day, whereas you used to be able to pick up sort of phishing emails, scam emails, from the post office saying you've got a parcel, because it was always written in poor English or there was weird logos on it. That doesn't seem to be happening anymore. Maybe whoever's writing these phishing emails is now using AI to make it come across in good English. So you've always got to be constantly ahead, and so I think it's for businesses now to have a robust security around their IT systems is probably imperative now, more than ever. You mentioned government regulation before, and in my career, I've always said that businesses are smarter than governments. Governments are always playing catch up. They're always trying to regulate against something that was happening 2 years ago. Where do they go from here? I mean, are they going to be able to even get close to catching up, or is the pace of being able to debate legislation, pass legislation, we're going to get even further behind with the pace of technology and the change?
I think that is a distinct possibility, because the way legislation work has not changed, I think, over the past 100 years. Right? We still use the same system. And added on top that there is no global standard yet. So any government trying to come up with a standard on their own would have problem with enforcement and adoption. Thailand could just say, I just come up with a standard, and you just use it within the walls of our country. That's not possible. So there would have to be first a global standard, which we don't know at this time. Chances are the US might be the leader in it, because they are pushing out the technology, where countries with the technology leadership, and then other countries will adopt it. But I suppose that would just be, the fact of life. But generally, businesses would then adopt it informally into their internal systems first. Of course, by the time the regulators, I wouldn't say by the time they catch up, when they come up with the regulations, a lot of times it can be expensive for businesses to adopt, because the requirements tend to be quite onerous and holds carte blanche across the board. So you see it, in the EU, right, with PDPA. You see it in the EU with other standards around technologies that they have adopted. We haven't adopted it, but chances are we will catch up to it. So, at the end of the day, I suppose that would be my expectations. It will be the same unless there is some change in our legal processes, which I doubt so. Or the government has to come up with a way to have effectively guidelines, which technically would not then be legally enforced by law. Right? You could come up with decrees that could be enforced for a short moment in time before you act on the legislation. So those would be kind of the stop-shot measures that we can impose.
But is it realistic to think every country in the world will adopt the same legislation? Because clearly we have marked differences globally at the moment.
I think it would depend on the nature of the matter being regulated. So if you look at for certain initiatives, there are global standards, even though in this day and age, I think global bodies such as the OECD or even the WTO are declining in their prestige and their ability to push forward global initiatives. You could come out with regional initiatives depending on the strength of the region. So you'll see Europe, the EU coming up with their own standards the North America, their own standards. If Southeast Asia or ASEAN becomes strong enough, we might develop something ourselves. But in the fields of technology, generally we do not have the capability to be the leader, so we'll have to adopt.
Interesting when Governor to it is maybe a comparison is you look at digital assets, more specifically Bitcoin, where the US, amongst others, did their darndest to try and ban it, or at least control it, and stop it being used. And they've now pretty much given up, and they're now allowing ETFs, Bitcoin ETFs now, right? So is it going to be something, the government will try and regulate it, will try and control it, and eventually say, this is moving too quickly, we're not going to stop it. Market forces are too strong.
I think so.
Yeah.
In this case, I think so. Yeah. If Elon Musk is out there saying slow down, this is a problem because this is the genie is out of the bottle on this one, and I think it's. And as Tam was saying, anyway, the system is always behind, but this is also moving so fast. So you've got this elastic band effect, which is even more marked with generative AI than you've had with anything else that we've dealt with. And as I said, this pursuit of AGI, this artificial general intelligence, you fast forward that not very much, and you've got intelligent systems that can break financial encryption, basically, across the world, not that far away. I remember talking to somebody from the UK government who's saying that they were talking about how to develop a traffic system for a city in the north of England. And they asked AGI to come up with some solutions for this. Number 10 on their solution was to create a biological weapon that would destroy all humans. And if you think about the answer to many global problems, it involves a very similar scenario. So this genie is out of the bottle, and I think that's why I think there's a certain amount of worry about this, and it's not just the good people who have their hands on this as well. So there is a little bit of dystopian to this, I think, as well.
I was just noticing the time, Andrew, and I think we've got to start winding up. And on that note, with your number 10, we're going to basically destroy humanity. I think I'm not sure whether that's a good note to finish on. But, I guess one last thing, Chris, you talk in your section about the silver tsunami. Unfortunately, I look around this table and there's a bit of a silver tsunami of people here. You're obviously, and I think this group shows that we're doing our best to understand it. Do you think everyone is really in that silver age trying to adapt, or is able to be adapted? I mean, my father's 90 and he's now getting very good on his iPad. But
well, I mean, firstly, we look at the global issue. It's not just an issue here in Thailand. An aging population around the world, people living longer. I mean, we often refer to the good old days, but actually, if you look back at the good old days, you didn't live as long. There was more disease around. There was more issues around. So actually, we're living in a better time today than ever before, and we all have a greater life expectancy, and as a result of that, I think for businesses, this opens up a huge number of opportunities, new types of opportunities, new markets of people with a certain amount of wealth who have got time to spend and create business opportunities for others. Secondly, I think when we look at the older generation, realistically, although there's great resistance currently, we're going to have to accept people working longer past their 60s and maybe up to their 70s or slightly later. To be realistic, because there aren't going to be enough on our current business models or government models, enough taxpayers to fund it all. Then if we look at this older population and we've got a reducing workforce, we've got a lack of people to look after this older generation, not when they're fit and healthy and old, but when their health is starting to fail, before they need absolute full-time care. And where is that going to come from? I think technology is going to play a massive role in how we monitor those people, how we provide them with a quality of life, how we enable them to do things, whether it's voice command or other forms of communication, to enable them to have a better quality of life. I think this is an exciting new area that's opening up. I think there'll be a load of business opportunity. And I'm very hopeful that at the end of the day, people who are aging and their health is starting to fail will have a better quality of life for a longer period of time. But it's certainly happening. You can't deny it. It's there now. It's going to get bigger and stronger as a movement as we look forward. And it's about how we embrace and look after that in society.
Okay, so that's a good summary to wrap it up, Chris. So, Ratna, thanks for joining us. With technology, it's great to see you.
Embracing it.
Embracing, yes. Chris, Tanva, Andrew, thanks for joining me. It's been an interesting chat. So there you have it. Businesses, you need to be ready. I think the conclusion coming from us is we may not understand everything, but we've got to get to understand it quickly. As a business, if you don't get ready, if you want to keep in the old ways, sorry, you're screwed. You really need to adapt. So, read our report on business transformation in 2024. Get your act together, embrace what's coming, be ready for the change, and then you can boom and really thrive in the new world. Thanks for joining us.